All right, Aries, not bad, not bad. So from Le Vampire, you pulled the monster within, internal struggle, personal challenges, and wanting to improve. And then from Chakra Wisdom, you pulled gossip. And the very first thing that I heard was, let's give him something to talk about, right? And I got that song playing in my head now. I love Bonnie Raitt. But anyway, there are parts of you that you are wanting to fix, right? It's never a bad thing when we're looking at our own personal demons and wanting to fix that, you know. But with gossip, you may be dealing with people who don't truly understand you and unfortunately don't appreciate, you know, who you are, your uniqueness, right? Because gossip is very much about being supportive to other people, but, you know, also dealing with others that just don't get you. All right, Aries. Here's your overall for the week. Are you kidding me? Are we going to start this again? Really? Aries and the Ace of Wands, hand in hand, I swear to God. Oh boy. I'm trying to think who else had the Ace of Wands and it turned out to be like, no, maybe not. I don't think I've ever seen that with the Ace of Wands before. But, you know, same thing goes, right? With this brand new passionate opportunity here, it's all about making the most of this, right? Oh my goodness. In the past, the Four of Swords. So, you know, definitely an opportunity being presented to you here for a new beginning, you know, and this could be anything. It could be just physical passion in you needing to go after this. But if you're looking at the monster within, then maybe that's not the best thing to do. But, you know, this could be about creative ideas, a new job, new relationship, right? Just a new passionate beginning. That's what I love about the Ace of Wands. But the Four of Swords is the past coming through saying that at some point you didn't take action, right? That this is inaction, you know, and it could be that after a period of rest, it's like you're ready now. You're ready for this. You're ready to make the most of this. In the present, the Eight of Cups. So, you know, and I don't look at it as you needing to walk away from the Ace of from the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Wands, that one better not show up. But I'm waiting to see what's happening in your environment. This to me is like before you can even, you know, begin to take advantage of a new start for you, it's needing to move on from things that are no longer fulfilling, right? I've always said with the Eight of Cups, this is harder for me to look at than the Ten of Swords. You know, because then the question becomes, are you actually moving away? Or are you still feeding into something that, you know, you originally needed to take a break from? You know, or are you coming out now from this period of rest and now leaving these things behind, right? Future conditions, the Queen of Pentacles. I look at her and I immediately think, you know, like I've always said with her, first of all, she doesn't need a king. You know, she doesn't need anybody to help her. She can do shit on her own, right? And create her own stability and security. But, you know, do you feel secure in yourself, right? Because I also feel like she carries like a level of insecurity. Now, this could definitely be somebody that you're dealing with who is running their mouth, going back to gossip, which is possible. But I don't know. I look at this more so as the progression of you. You know, and you could definitely be dealing with a person who is presenting this opportunity to you. But I don't know. I look at the Queen of Pentacles and I feel like it's more about you than it is another person. You know, but before you can get to this place of feeling like you can create your own comfort and stability here, and make the most of that Ace of Wands, there's something that has to be let go of, you know, and no longer fed into anymore. Your best path to follow, the Four of Cups. You watch out for that. It's not the Ace of Cups, but it's there, damn it. The Four of Cups is your best path to follow. I always worry about this one when it shows up for Aries because I think boredom and Aries does not go good together, right? Disinterest. Being dissatisfied with things, you know, don't continue to hope for something better to happen in this situation, you know, with the Eight of Cups being in the present. because it's just not, it's not there, right? And for you, it's one of those things where you may have gone through, this new beginning before, having new opportunities come through, and then you putting in all this time and effort and they just fall flat on you, right? But you can't look at every situation that way. This is basically saying we need to get out of that emotional funk, that dissatisfaction and disinterest. You can't be handed the Ace of Wands and go, meh, right? Because it's about making the most of this. But I think where you're at right now it's difficult at best. And your environment, damn. Wow. Justice. I look at that and I think, if there's something that you've invested a lot into and you didn't get shit from it, then something needs to be fixed, like right now. I always get like, ooh, man, somebody's going to get their ass handed to them, right? I look at justice and I see that more so as karma than judgment. Let me exit here so I can get away from this. I certainly don't want to be around when karma gets dealt out, right? But this is big for you, though. There are definitely some things that need to be fixed. Some wrongs need to be corrected here. But with justice being in your environment, to me, it's like, yes, you are going to have that fairness and balance. Especially if you've invested so much into something that just fell flat on you. But be careful about being stuck in disinterest, because something didn't work, right? I mean, it's about you needing to come out of that period of rest now and feeling more, secure and feeling self-sufficient here with the Queen of Pentacles. Like you can take that Ace of Wands and run with it and make the most of it. You don't need anybody to help you. But, I look at this and think that for some of you, you may be looking at it going, I don't want to end up in the same place that I've been before. So, what makes this any different? Your hopes and your fears, the Nine of Cups. Yeah, the want, right? Like wanting this, wanting to be happy, wanting to feel abundant in all areas. But I look at this and think that, yes, this is something that you want. But is it going to bring you that happiness? That's where the hope and the fear lies. Are you going to have these wishes fulfilled this time, or are you going to go back to this place of the Eight of Cups, right? But with justice, it's like it's being corrected. It's almost like the universe recognizes the fact that you spent so much time doing something that gave you shit back. And here again is this beautiful Ace of Wands. It doesn't ever leave you, I swear to God. And then coming out the Ten of Pentacles, and that's perfect. I mean, look at the progression. It's perfect. So you get to a spot where you feel a little bit more secure. You're able to, create what you want out of this Ace of Wands, and it ultimately leads to the Ten of Pentacles, right? Absolute security and stability. I think it's good. I would just be careful about looking at what's being handed to you and going, yeah, whatever, I think once you see that things are being corrected here, especially with the Eight of Cups, I think that hope is going to come back, that this is going to be what you want this time, right? So definitely with the Four of Pentacles, it makes sense to me, and then with the Four of Swords, right? There's no reason to take any action here or to give any more. And I feel like this is because we're looking at an 8 here, even though you had the 4 coming through, this is something that you've been with for a while, right? Now, with the 8 of Swords, and looking at the 8 of Cups and Justice, not seeing how, the situation can be corrected, how it can be fair and balanced out, or how you can move away from this, feeling like you are stuck with this, right? But then with the King of Swords, I mean, absolutely, it can be said that, this is about you getting to a place where you see things logically now and clearly, right? But, this could definitely be about somebody coming through, somebody who is handing you this opportunity, but it ultimately leads to, where you feel secure. But I worry that some of you may still hold yourself back because of what you've experienced and what you're still dealing with right now. Just because you've invested a lot in something before doesn't mean that everything that comes through is going to be that way. And like I said, I go back to that Four of Cups and think, you got to be careful here about looking at everything that comes to you and going, not interested. I see it as a good thing. I just look at the Four of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords and think these are the circumstances that have been surrounding you for a while. But things are changing, right? But, like I said, when it comes to Aries, and especially when I see, the king show up, it's a masculine sign, whether you're male or female. So to come out with the King of Swords, the Queen of Pentacles, I mean, if this is just about you, I mean, that's like the perfect combo. Seeing things clearly, understanding, using logic and reason instead of allowing yourself to stay in a way of thinking. But then also feeling secure in your ability to create comfort and stability with this new opportunity. But I still think that for some of you, it's because of somebody, and it doesn't have to be romantic. But like I said, it's all the internal struggles that you're dealing with, but it's only based on what you've experienced before, right? And don't pay attention to what other people have to say. Give them something to talk about, right? Well, let's take a look at the soul trees here and see what else comes up. So if you have new growth happening, it's important to honor yourself and respect yourself in what you actually want here, right? And don't allow yourself to stay, stuck with things that are not going to give you what you actually want, but allow this situation to unfold, because ultimately it's going to lead you to this security and stability and you being able to make the most of that Ace of Wands, despite the fact that you may be stuck right now or think that you are stuck, continuing to have to do something that just isn't giving you anything. It's almost like this is going to lead you to what you've been wanting. But unfortunately, you have to be put through the bullshit first before you get there, right? But things are going to be corrected, which is great. But needing to pay attention, though, to the internal things that need to change here, especially with that Four of Cups. But that to me is minor. But it looks good. And then choose love. You always have a choice as to what you should do. So, even though things may not have worked out, right? Like, even though you want to give up on love, love is always going to be there, right? It's not going to quit, even though you may want to. Especially if we're looking at difficulties in relationships here, but choosing love, like you always have a choice here. You can choose to, love who you love what you're doing and not give up on it, right? But I don't know, I look at this and I think, whatever you've been investing into, it's not good enough. It's going to be corrected, but the new opportunity that comes through is like in danger of being rejected. Because really for you, it's like, what makes this any different, But once you get out of that way of thinking, I do think that, the way that it lines up, it looks good, being secure and being secure with who you are and what you choose to do or what you choose to love. All right, Aries. You and that damn Ace of Wands, I'm telling you, it's never going to leave you. But what kills me on this is that you're looking at it from the Four of Cups point of view. But I can understand with the Eight of Cups being in the present moment. If you spent a lot of time and invested a lot into something, and then having it fall flat on you, it would make sense that if a new opportunity is being presented, the Ace of Wands, again, right, it would make sense that you're looking at it like, what makes this any different? But you have to be careful about that. And then being trapped in a certain way of thinking here, I do think that that is going to be, the personal struggle here. But, right, even if you're dealing with people who don't understand what you are changing about yourself, it doesn't matter, right? Let them talk, right? Give them something to talk about. But to me, it looks like you're not really seeing it, though. It looks like these things are going to be fixed. They're going to be corrected. All the time and effort that you put into something that didn't give you what you wanted, with justice being there, things will be fair and balanced out. But it's really about you coming out of, this coma, so to speak, here with the Four of Swords, this inaction, and needing to take advantage of that Ace of Wands. Because I do think that, it's about what you want. What is going to bring you that happiness, right? And having, those wishes fulfilled and all those wonderful things, but feeling abundant. But then also, feeling secure in your ability here to make the most of that and create this security and stability. Because I do think that this is about you. Now, at the same time, I do think that this is something that's also being offered to you, and possibly a work situation here. But, like I said, with Aries being a masculine sign, when the kings show up, it makes sense to me, whether you're male or female, that this would be the energy that you take on. Definitely with the Four of Pentacles, not wanting to give anymore, right? Not wanting to give anymore, wanting to take a break from this, but yet still being stuck with it and not seeing how, this situation is going to change, or seeing your way out of this, right, with that Eight of Swords. But, with the King of Swords and then looking at the Ten of Pentacles, I do think that you start to see things a little bit more clearly, and you see how there can be this overall security and stability for you with making the most of that Ace of Wands. I still feel like that Four of Cups is a warning to, be careful about how you see what's coming through to you based on what you've already experienced. Now, with the soul trees, definitely new growth. Honor yourself here, and, honor yourself by at least giving, this opportunity a chance here, and not continuing to do something that isn't giving you what you want. But then also allow things to unfold, allow this situation to unfold, and don't keep yourself stuck in a way of seeing things or thinking about things. Right? But again, it makes sense based on what you've experienced or what you are experiencing. Now, love endures. When it comes to this one, if you're dealing with difficulties in a relationship, it's just saying that, it's not, those things don't stop that kind of love from continuing, right? And no matter what you've been through, there will always be that love there. But you have a choice here. You can choose to love who you want to love, what you want to love, but it's there. Like, it's enduring. And then I look at that Ace of Wands and I'm going, yeah, I know. I like it. I like the progression that's coming out. I do question a little bit, whether or not you feel secure in yourself and your ability to make the most of that. But you eventually move into this place where I feel like, you reach that security and stability and start to see things clearly. Just be careful about rejecting that damn Ace of Wands.